The deep rumble of the USS Horizon's engines vibrated through Commander Susan Mitchell's boots as she walked across the bridge. Her steps were measured and calm, but her mind raced with the weight of their mission. Humanity's first contact with an alien species was about to happen, and she was at the center of it all. "Status report," she said, taking her seat in the command chair. Lieutenant Peter Clark looked up from his station. His young face was tense in the blue glow of his screen. "All systems normal, Commander. The fleet is holding formation. We're approaching the coordinates in 12 minutes. Susan nodded and turned to the large viewport that dominated the front of the bridge. The blackness of space stretched before them, dotted with stars. Somewhere out there waited something unknown. The energy signatures they had detected near Neptune had sent Earth into a frenzy of preparation and speculation. After decades of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, they had finally found something. "Communications check with all vessels," Susan ordered. Officer Kelly Rodriguez tapped at her console. "All 37 ships reporting in, Commander. Admiral Warren is requesting a final briefing before arrival." Susan tapped the comm link on her chair. "Patch him through." The stern face of Admiral George Warren appeared on the main screen. His gray hair was cut short, and the lines around his eyes had deepened since their departure from Earth orbit 3 weeks ago. "Commander Mitchell, is your crew ready?" "Yes, Admiral. All systems are go, and everyone knows their jobs." The Admiral's expression remained serious. "Good. Remember, we follow first contact protocol to the letter. No aggressive moves, no weapons active unless I give the direct order. Humanity's future might depend on the impressions we make today." "Understood." "Sir." As the Admiral's image disappeared, Susan felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The United Earth Defense Fleet was the best humanity had to offer. 37 warships, each carrying the most advanced technology Earth had ever produced. But would it be enough if things went wrong? Lieutenant Clark's voice broke through her thoughts. "Commander, we're picking up something strange. The energy signature has changed." Susan moved to his station. "Changed how?" "It's not like anything in our database." His fingers flew over the controls. "It's almost like it's absorbing energy from around it. And it's big, much bigger than our initial readings suggested." Susan straightened up. "Alert the Admiral and bring up the visual." The main screen flickered, and the image of distant Neptune was replaced by something that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. Against the blue backdrop of the gas giant hung what could only be described as a hole in space. Not a ship, not a station, but a perfect darkness that seemed to swallow the light around it. "What is that?" whispered Officer Rodriguez. No one answered. No one knew. Admiral Warren's voice crackled over the comm. "All ships, maintain formation. Proceed at reduced speed. Communications, begin broadcasting the greeting package on all frequencies." The greeting package was humanity's hello to the stars. Mathematical sequences, basic scientific principles, images of Earth and its people, all designed to demonstrate intelligence and peaceful intentions. Minutes passed with no response. "Distance to the object?" Susan asked. 800,000 kilometers in closing," replied Navigator Frank Jones. His usual confidence had given way to unease. "At current speed, we'll reach optimal communication range in 4 minutes." Susan watched the object grow larger on the screen. Unlike anything human engineers had ever built, it had no visible seams, no lights, no sign of construction at all. It was as if someone had simply cut a piece out of reality. "Still no response to our transmissions," Rodriguez reported. Admiral Warren's voice came through again. "All ships, hold position at 500,000 kilometers. Deploy communication. Probes." The fleet slowed to a stop, a floating display of human engineering against the vastness of space. Small probes detached from several ships, streaking toward the dark object with their message of peace. As the minutes ticked by, the tension on the bridge built. Susan found herself holding her breath as the probes approached the darkness. "Probes. We'll reach the object in 10 seconds, Clark announced. The crew watched in silence as the tiny dots of light that represented the probes moved closer to the darkness on their screens. Then, without warning, the probes vanished. What happened? Susan demanded. Clark's fingers flew over his console. Unknown. No explosion, no debris. They're just gone. Before anyone could react, a strange ripple seemed to pass through space itself. The stars behind the dark object appeared to bend just for a moment. Energy spike, Clark shouted. Massive energy spike coming from the object. Susan hit the ship-wide comm. All hands, brace for... Her words were cut short as a pulse of impossible energy erupted from the darkness. It wasn't a beam or a projectile. It was as if space itself had folded and unfolded in an instant. The first ship hit was the USS Dauntless on the fleet's outer edge. One moment it was there, the next it simply wasn't. No explosion, no debris field. It was as if it had never existed at all. Emergency protocols, Susan shouted. Shields to maximum. Begin evasive maneuvers. But it was already too late. 3 more ships vanished in rapid succession. The comm system erupted with shouts and orders as the fleet broke formation, each captain desperately trying to escape whatever was happening. Admiral Warren requesting emergency jump coordinates, Susan called into her comm. There was no answer. The flagship had already disappeared. Engine room, give me everything you've got, Susan ordered. Get us out of here, any direction. The queue. USS Horizon turned hard, its engines flaring blue against the blackness. But the ripple was faster. Susan felt a strange sensation, like the whole universe was holding its breath. Commander, Clark said quietly. His face had gone pale. It's coming for us next. Susan looked at her crew, at the people she had trained with and lived alongside for years. It's been an honor, she said. The ripple reached them, and for a split second Susan Mitchell felt something impossible, as if her consciousness was being pulled apart and reassembled, as if she was everywhere and nowhere at once. Then darkness. Back, on Earth in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Alan Paxton stared in disbelief at the tactical display. Where 37 dots had shown the position of Earth's mighty fleet, there was nothing. What just happened? He whispered. Lieutenant Samantha Kelly looked up from her communications station, her face white with shock. Sir, they're gone. The entire fleet. Just gone. The room fell silent as the truth sank in. Humanity's first contact had lasted exactly 6 minutes from start to finish, and in those 6 minutes everything had changed forever. The emergency lights cast a red glow over the faces of Earth's top military and scientific leaders as they gathered in the crisis room. 3 days had passed since the Neptune incident. 3 days of silence, confusion, and growing fear. General Alan Paxton stood at the head of the long table, his uniform crisp despite not having slept for more than a few hours at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice rough with exhaustion. In a few minutes, the President will address the world. Before that happens, we need to be clear about what we know and what we don't know. He nodded to Lieutenant Samantha Kelly, who tapped on her tablet. The large screen on the wall lit up with the last images received from the fleet. This is the final transmission from the USS Horizon, she said. Her professional tone couldn't quite hide the tremor in her voice. Timestamp shows it was sent 1543 Universal Time, exactly 6 minutes before all contact was lost. The room watched in silence as the dark object filled the screen. Unlike a black hole, it didn't bend light. Around it, it simply existed as perfect darkness against the backdrop of space. Dr. Laura Grant, the head of Earth's Xenoscience Division, stepped forward. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. We've analyzed everything. We have, which isn't much. The object doesn't match any known natural phenomenon. It doesn't reflect light, doesn't emit radiation, and doesn't seem to have mass in the way we understand it. What about the fleet? Asked a Navy admiral from the back of the room. 4,000 people don't just disappear. Dr. Grant's expression was grim. Based on the sensor data from our long-range probes, we believe the ships weren't destroyed in the conventional sense. There was no explosion, no debris. They simply ceased to exist in our observable universe. A murmur ran through the room. General Paxton raised his hand for silence. Dr. Martinez, you had a theory? Dr. John Martinez stood up. He was younger than most of the others in the room, a physicist whose work on quantum mechanics had earned him both fame and criticism for its radical ideas. I believe what we witnessed was technology so far beyond our understanding that it might as well be magic to us, he said. The pulse that erased our fleet wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was more like a fundamental rewriting of reality at the quantum level. In English, please, Doctor, said General Paxton. Martinez nodded. Imagine reality as a book. We know how to tear out pages. That's destruction as we understand it. Whatever this entity is, it knows how to erase the words and rewrite them. Our ships weren't destroyed, they were edited out of our reality. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Colonel Henry West, head of military intelligence, spoke next. The question we need to answer is, was this an act of war? Dr. Grant shook her head. We don't know enough to make that determination. First contact scenarios often involve miscommunication. It's possible our approach was perceived as threatening. Or they just didn't care, said another officer. If they have this kind of power, we might be like ants to them. The door at the back of the room opened, and a presidential aide entered. The president is ready, she announced. The screen switched to show President Edward Collins sitting at his desk in the Oval Office. His face was solemn as cameras prepared to broadcast his address to a frightened world. We're live in 3, 2, 1, said a technician off-screen. My fellow citizens of Earth, began the president. Today I must share with you the details of an event that will forever change our understanding of our place in the universe. 3 days ago, our United Earth Defense Fleet encountered an unknown entity near Neptune. In the span of 6 minutes, all 37 ships and their brave crews vanished. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. We do not yet know if this was an act of aggression or a tragic misunderstanding. What we do know is that we are not alone in this universe, and that there exist forces beyond our current comprehension. In homes and public squares across the world, people watched with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Parents held their children closer. Students in universities debated what it meant. Military personnel stood at higher alert, though many wondered what good conventional weapons would do against something that could erase a fleet in minutes. Back in the command center, as the president continued his address, an analyst rushed into the room and handed Lieutenant Kelly a note. Her eyes widened as she read it. General, she said urgently, we're detecting a new energy signature, same type as before, but it's not near Neptune anymore. The room fell silent. Where is it? Asked General Paxton, his voice deadly calm. It's in orbit around Earth, sir, just appeared out of nowhere. Dr. Grant moved quickly to a terminal. Put it on screen, now. The main display changed to show a view from an orbital satellite. There, against the blue and white of Earth, was a small, perfectly spherical object. Unlike the darkness they had seen before, this sphere seemed to shimmer with an inner light that shifted through colors no one could quite name. Is it the same entity? Asked Colonel West. Unknown, replied Dr. Grant. But the energy signature is identical. It's just smaller, much smaller. General Paxton straightened his uniform. Options, people. I need options. We could attempt to destroy it, suggested an Air Force general. Dr. Martinez laughed without humor. With what? Did you not see what happened to our fleet? Besides, it's in Earth orbit. If we're wrong about its intentions and it retaliates... He didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone in the room understood the implications. We need to... Try communication again, said Dr. Grant firmly. But differently this time. Our standard protocols clearly didn't work. Or worked too well, muttered Dr. Martinez. Maybe they understood us perfectly and didn't like what they heard. As the debate continued, Lieutenant Kelly's console beeped again. Sir, she said, her voice now barely above a whisper. The object is moving. It's descending into the atmosphere. On screens around the world, people watched as the mysterious sphere began to glow brighter, cutting through Earth's atmosphere like it wasn't there. No heat signature, no sonic boom, no signs of the physical stresses that affected human spacecraft. Track its trajectory. ordered General Paxton. Where's it headed? Lieutenant Kelly's fingers flew over her keyboard. Calculating now, it's coming here, sir. Directly to this facility. The red emergency light suddenly seemed much more ominous as everyone in the room realized the same thing. Whatever had wiped out Earth's fleet in 6 minutes was now coming straight for them, and there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. The command center erupted into controlled chaos. Armed guards took positions at every door. Scientists hurried to back up critical data. Military personnel readied weapons that everyone knew would likely be useless. General Paxton's voice cut through the noise. Everyone stay calm and at your posts. We don't know that its intentions are hostile. Dr. Laura Grant stood by the main display, watching the sphere's descent with a mixture of fear and fascination. It's slowing down, she observed. If it wanted to cause damage, it could have just crashed into us at full speed. The room fell silent as a new alert sounded. Lieutenant Kelly checked her console. Sir, the object has stopped. It's hovering directly above us, about 100 feet over the mountain. Show me, ordered Paxton. The screen switched to an external camera feed. The sphere floated motionless in the air, its surface rippling with colors that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. It was smaller than they had initially thought, perhaps no larger than a car. What's it doing? Colonel West asked, his hand resting on his sidearm. As if in answer, the sphere began to pulse with light. Each pulse came faster than the last, until they blended into a constant glow that grew brighter and brighter. Radiation levels? Dr. Grant asked sharply. Normal, replied a technician. Whatever that light is, it's not any form of radiation we can detect. Suddenly, the light stopped. The sphere remained, but now it was completely still and transparent, like a bubble of glass. I think it's waiting, Dr. Martinez said quietly. General Paxton frowned. Waiting for what? For us to respond. This is first contact, take 2. Dr. Grant nodded slowly. I agree. This feels like an invitation. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. General Paxton considered his options. They had no protocol for this specific situation. The first attempt at contact had ended with the loss of their entire fleet, yet doing nothing was not an option. Dr. Grant, you're our expert on xenobiology. What do you suggest? She took a deep breath. I suggest we accept the invitation. I'll go outside. Absolutely not, Paxton replied immediately. We can't risk, with all due respect, General, she interrupted. If that thing wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. It erased 37 warships in 6 minutes. This facility wouldn't be a challenge. The logic was hard to argue with. After a moment, Paxton nodded, reluctantly. Not alone, I'll go with you. Sir, protocol states, Colonel West began. Protocol went out the window when an alien sphere parked itself on our doorstep, Colonel. 10 minutes later, Dr. Grant and General Paxton stood in the cool mountain air, looking up at the floating sphere. A squad of soldiers formed a protective circle around them, though everyone knew the gesture was symbolic at best. The sphere pulsed once with light, then descended slowly until it hovered at eye level, just 20 feet away from them. Now what? Paxton muttered. Dr. Grant took a careful step forward. We're representatives of Earth, she said clearly. We wish to communicate peacefully. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the sphere's surface rippled, and a small object detached from it. The object floated gently through the air until it stopped in front of Dr. Grant. It was a perfect cube, about the size of her palm, with the same shifting colors as the sphere. I think it wants you to take it, Paxton said. With a scientist's curiosity overcoming her fear, Dr. Grant reached out and carefully took the cube. It was surprisingly warm and seemed to pulse slightly in her hand, almost like a heartbeat. The moment she touched it, the sphere above them began to rise back into the sky. Wait, Dr. Grant called out. But the sphere continued its ascent, moving faster and faster until it was just a point of light that vanished into the blue. What just happened? Asked one of the soldiers. Dr. Grant looked down at the cube in her hand. I think we just received a message. Back inside the facility, The cube was placed in a containment chamber, while sensors of every type were trained on it. Dr. Grant, Dr. Martinez, and a team of scientists gathered around, arguing about the best approach. "We should try to open it," suggested a younger scientist. "And risk triggering something dangerous?" "No," replied another. Dr. Martinez studied the cube through the chamber's clear wall. "I don't think it's a container. I think it's the message itself." "What do you mean?" asked General Paxton, who had been watching silently. "Look at the way the colors move across its surface. It's not random. There's a pattern." Dr. Grant peered closer. "He's right. The colors are moving in sequences, almost like data," finished Dr. Martinez. "It's showing us something, we just don't know how to read it yet." A technician at a nearby console called out, "Doctor, we're detecting unusual brainwave activity from anyone who looks directly at the cube for more than a few seconds." Dr. Grant turned to him. "What kind of brainwave activity?" "Increased theta waves, similar to what we see during deep learning or meditation. And there's something else. The patterns are synchronized between different observers." Dr. Martinez's eyes widened. "It's not just showing us data. It's teaching us how to understand it." Dr. Grant made a decision. "I need to study it more directly. Remove it from the chamber." General Paxton stepped forward. "That's not advisable, Doctor. It's, necessary," she replied firmly. "This isn't a weapon, General, it's a key." After lengthy debate and multiple safety measures, the cube was removed from containment and placed on a special table in the center of the lab. Dr. Grant sat before it, electrodes attached to her head to monitor her brain activity. "I'm going to focus on it fully now," she said to the team, watching anxiously. "Record everything." She stared at the cube, letting the shifting colors fill her vision. At first she saw only the beautiful flowing patterns, but slowly something began to change. The colors started to form shapes in her mind. Not images exactly, but concepts. "It's working," she whispered. "I'm seeing, understanding." Her voice trailed off as her eyes widened. The monitors showing her brain activity went wild, with patterns no one had ever seen before. "Dr. Grant?" Dr. Martinez called worriedly. "Laura, can you hear me?" She gave no sign that she heard him. Her eyes remained fixed on the cube, which now pulsed in perfect rhythm with her heartbeat. "Pull her back," ordered General Paxton. "Something's wrong." But before anyone could move, Dr. Grant gasped and fell backward in her chair. The cube went dark, its colors fading to a dull gray. Dr. Martinez rushed to her side. "Laura, are you all right?" Slowly, she opened her eyes. They seemed different somehow. Deeper, as if she was seeing things no one else could see. "I understand now," she said softly. "I know what happened to our fleet." All eyes in the room were fixed on Dr. Laura Grant. She sat perfectly still, her gaze distant as if looking at something no one else could see. The medical team hovered nearby, monitors beeping as they tracked her vital signs. "Dr. Grant, General," Paxton said carefully. "What did you see?" She blinked slowly, seeming to return to the present moment. "They're alive," she whispered. A murmur ran through the room. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "Who's alive, Laura?" "The fleet. All of them. Commander Mitchell, Admiral Warren, all 4,000 crew members." Her voice grew stronger. "They weren't destroyed. They were moved." "Moved where?" Colonel West demanded. Dr. Grant struggled to find the words. "It's difficult to explain in our language. The concepts don't translate well. The closest I can say is that they exist in a different layer of reality now." General Paxton frowned. "Like another dimension?" "No, not exactly." She pointed to the cube which still sat on the table, now a dull gray. "Think of reality as a book with many pages. We exist on one page. The fleet has been moved to another page. They're still there, still whole, just not accessible to us directly." Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. "That matches my theory about quantum rewriting, but why? Why would this entity do that?" Dr. Grant's expression became troubled. That's the part that's hardest to understand. The beings we encountered, they don't think like us. They don't see space and time the way we do. To them, our approach was, she searched for the right word, disruptive. Disruptive how? Asked General Paxton. Our ships, our technology, they operate on principles that created what these beings perceive as noise, dangerous noise, like how we might hear a sound that's painful to our ears. She looked around the room. They didn't attack us, they were protecting themselves. The implications of her words settled heavily on everyone present. Lieutenant Kelly was the first to speak up. If the fleet is still intact somewhere, can we get them back? Dr. Grant turned to the cube. That's why they sent this. It's not just a message, it's a tool. It's showing us how to understand their reality so we can communicate properly, and possibly, eventually, how to bring our people home. Over the next several days, a special team was assembled. The brightest minds in physics, neuroscience, and mathematics worked around the clock, studying the cube and the data from Dr. Grant's experience. They built a specialized lab deep within the mountain facility, filled with equipment designed to detect the slightest changes in the cube's energy patterns. Dr. Grant worked tirelessly, often forgetting to eat or sleep until Dr. Martinez forced her to take breaks. Her mind had been changed by contact with the cube. She saw patterns now where others saw only random data. She understood concepts that had previously seemed impossible. 1 week after the cube's arrival, the team made their first breakthrough. Look at this, Dr. Grant said, pointing to a complex display of shifting light patterns they had managed to extract from the cube. It's not just data, it's a map. Dr. Martinez studied the patterns. A map of what? Reality itself. All the layers, all the pages of the book. Her fingers traced a particular pattern. And this is where our fleet is. General Paxton, who had been overseeing their work, leaned forward. Can we reach them? Not yet, Dr. Grant admitted. But we're getting closer. The cube is teaching us step by step. On the 10th day, they made another discovery. Michelle Taylor, a NASA engineer who specialized in communication systems, noticed something about the cube's energy signature. It's resonating, she said, showing her findings to Dr. Grant. Very faintly, but it's definitely responding to something. Doctor, Grant checked the data. You're right. But what's causing it? They searched the facility, testing different equipment, different materials, even different sound frequencies. Nothing seemed to affect the cube's resonance. Then Dr. Martinez had an idea. What if it's not responding to something here? What if it's responding to something out there? He pointed upward, toward space. They relocated equipment to the roof of the facility, pointing sensors toward the stars. For hours, they detected nothing unusual. Then, as Neptune came into view in the night sky, the cube's resonance increased dramatically. That's it, breathed Dr. Grant. It's connected to whatever is still out there near Neptune. Michelle Taylor worked through the night refining their detection equipment. By morning, she had astonishing news. We're picking up signals, she announced to the team. Very faint, but definitely artificial. And they're coming from exactly where our fleet disappeared. Dr. Grant studied the signal patterns. These match some of the patterns in the cube. I think it's the fleet. They're trying to communicate with us. The news spread quickly through the facility. Hope, which had been in short supply, suddenly flourished. General Paxton called an emergency meeting. If we can detect them, can we communicate with them? Can we bring them back? Dr. Grant shook her head. Not yet. But the cube is showing us how their technology works. It's like learning a new language, a language of reality itself. How long will that take? Colonel West asked. I don't know, she admitted. Could be weeks, could be years. Dr. Martinez spoke up. There's another possibility. Instead of bringing them here, what if we could go there? The room fell silent. You mean send another ship? General Paxton asked. After what happened to the First Fleet? No, Dr. Martinez said. I mean send a message. A message that would cross between these layers of reality. Dr. Grant's eyes widened as she understood. Using their language, their methods. Yes, that might work. They worked day and night, using the cube to design a new kind of transmitter. It looked nothing like conventional human technology. Instead of circuit boards in metal, it was built from crystals grown in specific patterns, arranged in geometric shapes that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. On the 15th day after the cube's arrival, they were ready for their first test. The team gathered on the roof of the facility under the night sky. The strange crystalline transmitter sat on a platform, connected to power sources and monitoring equipment. The cube was placed at its center, now glowing with renewed color and energy. "We've programmed a simple message," Michelle Taylor explained, to General Paxton. "Just a basic greeting and an identification signal that the fleet should recognize." Dr. Grant checked the final connections. "If this works, we should get some kind of response." "And if it doesn't work?" asked Colonel West. Dr. Martinez gave a grim smile. "Then we keep trying." Dr. Grant took a deep breath and activated the transmitter. The cube at its center began to pulse with light, colors flowing through the crystalline structures around it. The air seemed to shimmer, and for a brief moment everyone present felt a strange sensation, as if the world had shifted slightly around them. Then everything was still again. "Did it work?" General Paxton asked. Before anyone could answer, one of the technicians monitoring the equipment called out, "We're receiving something, a signal, coming through on the same frequency we transmitted." They crowded around the displays. The incoming signal was weak but clear, a pattern of pulses that matched their own transmission, but with subtle differences. Dr. Grant studied it intently, her expression changing from concentration to shock. "What is it?" Dr. Martinez asked. "What does it say?" She looked up, her eyes filled with tears of joy and disbelief. "It's from Commander Susan Mitchell. She's alive, and she's asking us to bring them home." The news that Commander Susan Mitchell and the fleet were alive spread through the facility like wildfire. Hope replaced despair as scientists and military personnel worked with renewed energy. For the first time since the Neptune incident, laughter could be heard in the hallways. Dr. Laura Grant barely slept. Each communication with the fleet provided new insights into the reality where they were trapped. Commander Mitchell described a place that defied human understanding, a world where time moved differently, where solid objects could pass through each other, where light had mass and gravity was a choice rather than a law. "It's beautiful here," Mitchell's message read, "but we don't belong. Some of the crew are struggling to maintain their sense of self. We need to come home." 3 weeks after first contact with the lost fleet, President Edward Collins visited the mountain facility. The scientists briefed him on their progress and their plans. "We believe we can bring them back," Dr. Grant explained, standing beside their growing collection of crystal technology. "But it won't be simple, and it won't be without risk." "What exactly are you proposing?" the president asked. Dr. Martinez stepped forward. "The cube has shown us how to build a gateway between realities, a door, if you will, that can allow passage between their layer of existence and ours." "And you believe this will work?" Dr. Grant nodded. "We've successfully transferred small inanimate objects both ways. The technology is sound. But to bring back 4,000 people and 37 ships, that will require much more power and precision." The president looked around at the determined faces of the team. "What do you need from me?" "Authorization," said General Paxton, "and resources. This will be the most important rescue mission in human history." The president didn't hesitate. "You have both. Bring our people home." Construction of the gateway began immediately. The world's best engineers worked alongside scientists who were still learning the principles of the alien technology. The structure took shape in a remote desert location, a massive ring of crystalline panels arranged in patterns that seemed to change when viewed from different angles. Power lines stretched across the desert, connecting to emergency generators and the main power grid. Computers ran simulations day and night, calculating the precise energy requirements and timing needed to open a door to another reality. Michelle Taylor led the communication team, maintaining constant contact with the fleet. Commander Mitchell reports that they can see our work from their side, she told Dr. Grant one evening. They describe it as a thinning between realities. Dr. Grant smiled tiredly. That's good news. It means our calculations are correct. 2 months after the Neptune incident, the gateway was ready for its first full test. Security was tight around the desert facility. Military vehicles formed a perimeter, and aircraft patrolled the skies above. No one knew what might happen when they fully activated the gateway. Dr. Grant stood before the assembled team. Today we bring our people home. Each of you knows your role. Follow the protocols exactly as we've practiced. Remember, timing is everything. The gateway hummed with energy as power flowed through the crystalline structure. Colors shifted across its surface, forming patterns that seemed to pull at the eyes of everyone watching. The air within the ring shimmered and warped. Power at 20%, called out a technician. Dr. Grant checked the readings on her tablet. Maintain current flow. Let the resonance build slowly. The humming grew louder. Small objects near the gateway, pens, papers, loose equipment, began to vibrate in sympathy with the sound. 40%. Dr. Martinez watched the energy, patterns with intense focus. The boundary is starting to thin. I can see fluctuations in the local gravity field. 60%. The air within the ring was no longer transparent. It had taken on a shimmering liquid quality, like the surface of water reflecting light. 80%. Alarms began to sound as sensors detected anomalies in the surrounding space. We're getting quantum fluctuations beyond the containment field, a scientist called out. Hold steady, Dr. Grant ordered. This is expected. 90%, 95%, 100% power achieved. The gateway erupted with light, so bright that even with protective glasses many had to look away. The humming changed to a deep throbbing pulse that could be felt rather than heard. The liquid-like surface within the ring began to swirl, forming a vortex that seemed to stretch into infinite distance. Gateway is stable, reported Dr. Martinez, his voice filled with awe. Boundary between realities is open. Dr. Grant activated the communication system. Commander Mitchell, do you read me? The gateway is open. You are clear to begin approach. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, through speakers that crackled with strange interference, came a familiar voice. This is Commander Susan Mitchell. We see the gateway. Beginning approach now. Over. Everyone held their breath. Minutes passed that felt like hours. Then, slowly, something began to emerge from the swirling vortex. At first, it was just a dark shape, indistinct and wavering. Then it solidified, the pointed bow of a ship, pushing through the boundary between realities like a submarine surfacing from the depths of an ocean. It's the USS Horizon, someone shouted. More of the ship appeared, its hull gleaming in the desert sun. It moved slowly, majestically, seemingly floating above the ground as it fully emerged from the gateway. Behind it came another ship, and another. One by one, the vessels of Earth's lost fleet returned home, floating impossibly through the air before settling gently onto the desert floor. Medical teams rushed forward as hatches opened and crew members began to emerge. They moved uncertainly, as if they had forgotten how gravity worked. Many fell to their knees and touched the ground with expressions of wonder and relief. Commander Susan Mitchell was among the last to exit. Her uniform was crisp, but her face showed the strain of her long ordeal. She walked straight to where Dr. Grant, Dr. Martinez, and General Paxton waited. Commander Mitchell, General Paxton said formally, saluting. Welcome home. She returned the salute. Thank you, sir. Permission to report? Granted. Mitchell took a deep breath, looking around at the desert, the sky, the familiar world she had feared she might never see again. Sir, we have made contact with an intelligence far beyond our understanding. They did not intend to harm us. When our fleet approached, our technology created what they perceived as a dangerous disruption in their reality. Their response was not an attack but a defensive measure, relocating us to a place where we could do no harm. And the cube? Dr. Grant asked. Why did they send it? Mitchell smiled faintly. An apology of sorts and a gift. They realized we were sentient beings who didn't understand what we were doing. The cube contains knowledge that will change everything we thought we knew about reality. Dr. Martinez looked back at the gateway, still humming with energy. What happens now? Now, said Commander Mitchell, we learn how to be better neighbors in a universe that's far stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined. As the sun set over the desert, the crews of the Lost Fleet embraced their rescuers and fellow humans. The gateway continued to shimmer, a door between worlds that would never again be fully closed. And somewhere beyond normal space and time, intelligent beings very different from humans watched and waited to see what humanity would do with their newfound knowledge. The fleet that had been wiped out in 6 minutes had returned, and with them came the dawn of a new era for all of humanity.